good one. So I like this subject because there are some people that they will really jump the gun on this, man. Like they'll take one right out of the gate, first pick. And unless they're gonna have a year like Patrick Mahomes did last year. But how would you predict that? Like you can't know that going into it. So I can't stand people who jump on those early, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so here's how it goes. Someone's going to take Patrick Mahomes in the first or second round.
Yep.
And I'm going to disagree with them on that pick. I get why you do it. But statistically, there's no way he's going to do better than he did last season. There's no way. There's just no way. He'll have.
God help us all if he does better than he did last year.
He'll have half.
The Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl if he does that.
Well, I mean, if their defense can step up, because clearly their offense can do well, but I mean, as you saw with them against the Patriots, you need a defense to appear otherwise, or a coin flip to go your way. Otherwise, you're not going to win. Because I mean, that's all it was, is they were potentially a coin flip call going in their favor from winning, because New England wasn't necessarily stopping Patrick Mahomes marching down the field.
They were moving the ball down the field, no problem. But that was an offensive game. Neither one of them could stop either one.
Yeah.
So whoever won that coin toss was going to win that game. Like everybody knew that going into it.
So my thing is, so if you look at quarterbacks from last year, and you look at just their average points, so over a 16 game season, 17-week season, Patrick Mahomes was averaging 26 points per game, 26.1. I don't want to throw the points in there because screw it. So 26 points a game. The next one down would have been Matt Ryan, 22 points a game. Next one down, Ben Roethlisberger, 21 points a game. Deshaun Watson, Andrew Luck, 20. Aaron Rodgers, 19, but essentially 20. Jared Goff, 19 on the lower end. Drew Brees was at 20. I mean, you had Cam Newton was in 20. Mitch Trubisky was almost hitting 19 points on average. So you have this league where why would you rush to pick a quarterback?
You got so many choices, man.
When
they're all going to be producing.
Yeah, because if you take Patrick Mahomes first round, you've lost out on a running back or a quarterback if it's a PPR league. That's going to do a running back or a receiver. That's what I meant. That's going to do so much more value for you. But I get it, Patrick Mahomes. He easily outscored everyone in fantasy last year. Like, it wasn't a competition.
You had him on your team. More than likely, you did really well in fantasy last year.
But it wasn't a guarantee you'd win because you didn't necessarily have him stacked with good players. Because who knows when you drafted him? Because I don't think a lot of people drafted him. But yeah, no, I mean, just points average in a standard league, he was at 417 total points. The next closest person, 354. He clearly, by and far, just went through there and just destroyed people. If your QB isn't getting you at least 15 you picked. Yeah, I mean, your quarterback.
Jay Cutler. Yeah. What a dumpster fire.
But, I mean, it's a league where quarterbacks are going to produce. You just have to make sure you get one of, statistically, there's like 17 that will do well for you. So half the league.
And most of the fantasy leagues you play in are not going to be that deep. No. I mean, the one I did last night was 16, and that's the biggest league I've ever been a part of. Yep. Like usually it's like 10, 12, 8.
So I was looking at some expert drafts, and I see Patrick Mahomes coming off the board as the first quarterback in the 5th round. I still think that's too early for a quarterback. B said 7th. I think that's probably a better fit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, fantasy sports drafting is almost like it's almost like the stock market, man. You have to read to see where things are going and determining if you're buying or selling. And it takes just two assholes at times to not know what they're doing to say, I'm giving me Patrick Mahomes right now.
Yeah.
And then it sets off this run of quarterbacks that you're forced. I agree. I think 7th is still too early, but I mean, again, you're going most drafts I've been in, you always have a handful of people. So I guess I haven't been in cultured fantasy sports drafts, but you're always going to be dealing with people where the quarterback run is always going to happen too early.
Yeah.
But I mean, Reno, when did you draft your quarterback? You drafted
Ninth round.
and you
Ninth
drafted
round.
and you drafted Tom Brady. Statistically, Tom Brady isn't the best quarterback fantasy wise, but guess what? He averaged in a standard league last year 17.5 points a game.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Like that's all you need from a quarter.
If he averages that every game, I'll be happy.
Because if he's averaging 17.5, then that means he's a touchdown toss or a Julian Edelman not being suspended break from averaging 20 a game. And realistically, that 17, 18 range is where you're going is where your quarterback's probably going to be producing. Yeah. The ones that go above 20, it happens, but it's not something that you can bank on reliably, I feel like. I mean,
yeah. It'll be like, well, they get hot one game or they play against a defense that's not very good one week, and then next week they're back down to, 17.
I mean, you got Matt Ryan. Without Julio Jones, is Matt Ryan getting 22 points per game?
Absolutely not.
I mean, you might say that Ridley.
You could probably have another receiver in there.
You might say that
still do pretty good
because Ridley Cooper, when Julio Jones went out for like a game or two, did do really well. But like, is he as consistent target?
I don't think he's as high
because I don't think he has made as many points. I don't think he had as many points as what Julio would put in there. And they've still got a couple of running backs where they're trying to figure out where that goes. I feel like then you also have to look at who has running backs that are going to pad the stats of quarterbacks. I think sneakily Tom Brady kind of has some of that now because you have Sony Michel, who's going to be a little bit more versatile at times, and then they'll bring in some ancient running back that we've all forgotten, and
he's still in the league.
He'll do great. They'll like resurrect Fred Jackson, and he'll come back in and give 50 points one game. But you got Deshaun Watson, who again has a big time receiver. Ben Roethlisberger, big time receiver. Andrew Luck kind of is making do with bare minimum.
T.Y. Hilton and what's that other guy's name?
Let me see. I don't even know. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers gets the most out of his points because I don't think Randall.
It don't matter who's out there.
Yeah, because they shipped off Randall Cobb, right?
Yeah, he's a Cowboy now.
Yeah, so they shipped off Randall Cobb. Before that they had shipped off Jordy Nelson because they shipped him to the Raiders, and I think that experiment has already ended.
Yeah.
So I don't know who he has. I mean, he has what? Jimmy Graham?
Latavius Murray?
Jimmy Graham's not good. Jimmy Graham's good, but he's not good for that fit, apparently. He's not going to do well there. Jared Goff has a spoiled of riches. So Jared Goff is an interesting one. Because you had a guy
he's got weapons everywhere, man.
That had like three different amazing receivers. You could go Brandon Cooks, you could go Robert Woods,
Cooper Kupp,
or you could go Cooper Kupp. So your two wideouts and your slot were all scoring outrageous points. And then, oh hey, you know what? If they're covered, I'll just dish it out to Todd Gurley on just a behind the line play, and he'll go give me 30 yards, so I'll get 3 points out of that as well. And even with that, Jared Goff was only averaging 19 points a game. So it's one of those things where it's like, what what?
We have no receivers. See, that's the thing though with Aaron Rodgers, like he doesn't necessarily have to have weapons, and he can still make, something out of nothing.
Not as effectively as Tom Brady.
Agreed.
Because Tom Brady Tom Brady has a receiving core that no other team would ever use.
Nobody knows.
Years.
It's like, who is this guy? I don't know. He showed up on the team this year, and Tom's been throwing to him a lot.
I mean, you could argue, well, they had Brandon Cooks. Well, yeah, but I mean, they then used Brandon Cooks as trade bait, and you can say what you want.
Rams.
You could say what you want, but who won the Super Bowl?
I mean, I would rather win the Super Bowl with a bunch of no names than.
Yep. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's always tricky with quarterbacks because I mean, again, all you're really hoping for is that they get that 17 points or higher a game. If they're doing 17 points or higher a game, you've got a good quarterback.
Yep.
If you don't have that, you're doing like I had to do in a couple leagues every year, and you're riding the waiver wire and hoping someone gets hot. Like
Please drop somebody.
You're just doing situational matchups where, okay, Joe Flacco and the Broncos are playing this team. He should be able to throw the ball on them. It's in Denver. That's who I'm playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
what's really bad is like on ESPN, like if you're in that situation, like you see the projected points that they've got for the player that you're playing that matchup on, like, oh God, this is gonna be bad. This is a prayer. I'm making a gamble here because nobody thinks he's going to score points, but for some reason I think he's going to. Like
yeah, and so I guess to help continue to put together why I think quarterbacks and why if you're drafting and you're listening to this and you haven't already heard it from someone else, you should draft your quarterback later in the draft, not in the top half of the draft, later in the draft, is because if you go by PPR scores, Patrick Mahomes was still number 1 in points, I feel like. But point averages, Todd Gurley was number 1 with 26.6 a game. Patrick Mahomes, 26.1. Saquon Barkley, 24.1. Christian McCaffrey, 24.1. Alvin Kamara, 23.6. Melvin Gordon, 23.0. And then there's Matt Ryan. And then there's a receiver, running back, quarterback, receiver, running back. So what I'm trying to say is you need more receivers and running backs to fill out your roster. So are you going
to do a single quarterback position?
So taking a quarterback in the first 3 rounds puts you at a point where you're losing out on one of these positions that are going to fill a spot and potentially score more points consistently week in or week out. For what? A quarterback, because you've been told it's a quarterback-driven league. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's in real life.
Yeah, real life, it does not correlate to fantasy.
Yeah, real life. I mean,
and I think we've covered that with Tom Brady. Like
yeah.
He's the GOAT. Nobody's going to question that, but he's not the GOAT when it comes to fantasy numbers.
Yeah, Tom Brady is a great quarterback. Tom Brady is not necessarily a great fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's always kind of interesting to see, just because, you never really know what you're going to get. But I mean, like if you scroll down and you look at averages, so you could hit at Phillip Lindsay, who's running back for Denver, or Marlon Mack, who's a running back for Indianapolis, and they were both getting just a couple points average per game, less than the top the top 3 through 10 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're trying to figure out how much you can front load in, and you definitely want to hit more with those top targets, and the only way you can do that is by not going quarterback right off the bat.
Agreed.
Do you think a receiver or a running back that can receive is the better go-to for your number 1 pick?
In a PPR league, it's definitely a running back who can receive. If you got a running back that's going to be making a lot of screen passes and things like that, yeah, absolutely, that's the way to go. That's my number 1. Now I will say, like in a standard league, I may pick my first 4 picks may be different in a standard league than a PPR league. So in a PPR league, I may take a really good pass catching running back in my first round, and then take 2 or 3 wide receivers right in a row, just because that early in the draft, that's a big thing you want the guys that are going to be getting the ball. They're the guys that are going to be catching the ball. And then, come back and pick up another running back, because you're that catchability gives you that. Just, I mean, it may not be like the league I'm in is a half point PPR. So you get a half a point for every reception they have. If they have 10 receptions, like that could potentially win you the game.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's, they may not, score a touchdown. They may not do anything, but if they catch, enough to put you over the top, that's all you need.
Milkman brings up a good point. Draft a kicker first.
Please listen to Milk in every draft you ever have.
If you are in any drafts with me, I will have some kind of innuendo for a name. Please draft a kicker first. That's all I ask. I will give you a fourth of your buy-in if you draft a kicker. I'll give you $5 in a $20 league if you draft a kicker first. Is the end. Goodbye.
Good night.
Click the like. Click the follows and the likes. Click them now. Click now.
Bye.
Click.